Good afternoon, everybody. We're on air this beautiful Tuesday evening.
Oh, hi, hey everyone. Hey Barry, Jennifer, Mandy.
Hi.
Hello, good to see you guys. Thank you for joining on this A-Team Hangout again.
Hi, Carol. And oh, sorry, Todd. I'm just seeing people saying hi to us.
Oh, okay.
Nina and Lorenzo as well.
Thanks everybody for joining us. And today we have a project that Bo has brought in. It's a little bit unique. It's a multifamily sort of a repositioning project, and thought it would be a good idea to go over it and just maybe. We purposely didn't go through a lot of detail on it prior to the call so that we could talk as we go through this initial review of it, and it allows people to see what the thought process is, at least with the team that we have here, as we see a project come in, what questions we might ask, what we liked about the project, what the next steps basically would be. So with that, Bo, would you be ready to share some information on the project?
Sure. It's this came across my desk like 2 days ago, and they were developing a 26-page kind of marketing business summary of the project, and I just got it yesterday, and I have not talked to the borrower yet. I was actually going to do so today, and this kind of came up to be a good opportunity, I think, to just review it. And I'm going to call the borrower tomorrow. So I've read most of the documentation in it, did minimal research up to this point, and I just did a quick 5-point PowerPoint that we can go through, and a deal analyzer that we're going to go through and look at the numbers and just see what we can dig out of it. And I'll bring up some points as we go along that I've read in the content. So I'll pull up.
Would you mind just sharing, just first of all, did this come in through a website link that you have, like a submission form, or did you get it in by way of an email?
It was a referral from a friend who's actually in the real estate business, and the deal's in Texas, so it's out of state. He's from Texas, so I have a good friend right there to do the research and follow up. So I feel pretty comfortable about that.
Great, and just as a comment here, that is probably what I find is the best source of projects is through referral. A lot of times the people that are referring already know the program, know what the underwriting criteria is, and so referrals are really a good way to do it. And if you get to the point where you get known well, then a lot of times a lot of the brokers will know who you are and how your projects work. So that's great to hear. Good.
So this is a 31-unit townhouse, and from what I understand right now, they're actually already on individual lots, so they can be sold off individually, even though it currently has one owner and they're being rented. And they're currently being rented well below market value, and it's 100% currently rented for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is currently cash flow on this project. This is, hopefully everybody can see, you can see they're kind of two-story row townhouses, and the landscaping needs to be spruced up. They recently had new roofs installed on it. The fencing around they have their own little backyard, so they've got new fencing, and so there's minimal maintenance on the exteriors, and the plan is to go in and completely gut the insides and put completely new interiors and modernize them. So that's actually the kind of the front elevation, and then here is a view of the top. So there's, I think, six units, although I see 6 to 8 units per building. No, there's 5 buildings, 31
and a
units.
total of 31 units, right?
Yeah, so that makes sense. 5 units, 6 per plus there's an office, I guess.
Okay.
So some of the details, there's actually 25 two-bedrooms, 6 one-bedrooms, which are going to convert into 2 bedrooms. Evidently, there's space above. I mean, I'm not quite sure how they configured, but they can turn them into 2 bedrooms. Built in 1968, and they average about 1,054 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Okay.
so right now they're looking at their option number 1 is they've got a conventional lender that's willing to do this type of project, which right now there's not really a lot of lenders out in the market to do this kind of lending conventionally. But he's secured a 5.5% loan, and I guess this lender's fairly excited about it because they want to get the loans on the back end on the 31 sales. And it's a 42% of ARV. The loan's like 1.95 million for the purchase. And the borrower is currently thinking about doing an LLC private placement and bring investors in with no, as far as I can tell, no interest, and he's willing to do an equity split of 50%.
Okay.
And my proposal would be to come in where he would have no partners. He would be in control of his own LLC. He could still use the conventional loan, assuming the conventional lender will deal with us as a second position lender, and then we would charge interest points and an equity share.
Okay. All right.
So that's a little bit about the financing, and then.
You mind if I just ask you a few questions on the project?
Sure.
So when it came in, it was a referral. That part is good. It was. It sounds like it could be a fairly sophisticated borrower, because if he's taking the time to do a 26-page investment summary or summary of the project, that to me would be a good sign. And this is just very early stage review, obviously. But do you? Let's see. Do you know who who's the owner? Is it owner? Is it a REO? You know what the situation is?
It appears to be a private owner, and you are right. It is a sophisticated borrower. He's done these type of projects several times. He's actually managed a fund before. He's been in Arizona. He did about 150 flip properties in the last 3 years, and he's recently moved to Texas, where he's bought a house, and he's ramping up his business in Texas. So,
Okay.
and he's got an experienced property manager and a broker to help him manage the units as they're working through them, and also on the back end to do the sale.
Okay. And you broke up right when you said who the owner is. Is it the? Could you repeat?
It appears to be a private
Okay.
owner.
Okay. All right. And I thought I read in there that this had already been converted. 6 of the units had already been converted to 2-bedroom, but maybe I misread that. But it sounds like there might be additional space up in the upstairs where the additional room could be.
Yeah, I think it said that they're going to turn the 1 bedrooms into 2 bedrooms. And I haven't seen the configuration, so I need to look into that.
Okay. Do you know anything about if there's rent control, or I would doubt that there would be in Texas, but any long-term commitments on the rental issues?
Evidently there are, I think about half of them are month to month, and they currently, there could be some long-term leases, which I have a note to find out how that might impact their phasing. I can find out about, certainly worth asking about rent control. It doesn't mention it in any of the performance.
Okay. Okay.
But there is a concern that there could be a problem with phasing if you've got tenants in there that have a 12-month lease and they don't want to budge or don't want to move to a different unit or whatever you have to do to relocate them.
Mm-hmm.
I need to find out if they've thought that through.
Sure. Do you think that there will be a challenge coming up with comps, since this is it's what I would think would be considered a repositioning of a project, and like as in residential land developments, when you start a new development, sometimes it's hard to get the initial appraisals done because you don't really have comps. Do you know what the situation might be there? It's probably early to tell.
The market study showed that there's a lot of new units that are being built.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen, what they actually look like. I guess the average condo sale is running around 200,000.
Mm-hmm.
This type of product. So they're proposing selling it for 150,000. Probably because of the location, even though it's in an area it's growing quite a bit. It's a area of town that's being renovated, and there's a lot of people moving to the area.
Okay.
One of the biggest concern is the coming up with a price. So appraisal could be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Bo, can I ask a question?
Yep.
What did the bank use when it approved them for that loan? They had to have some kind of a value, and where did they get that?
I can't see where there is an appraisal as of yet. So it's a local bank, so they probably understand the market a little bit. But I haven't confirmed that there isn't an appraisal yet. I just haven't seen it.
Okay.
Okay. Do you know if the borrower is planning on putting cash in himself?
I haven't talked to him yet, but he's not offering any cash in the deal in any of the paperwork or business plan that I see. I plugged in, a minimum of 100,000. I see he owns a free and clear $180,000 property, but I don't know what his intent is. I assume. Actually, I was told that he may be putting it on the market to sell it. Could have been a flip. So it could be used as collateral.
Okay.
So until I dig into it deeper.
Sure. Yeah, it certainly looks like an interesting project so far. It would be interesting to see if by chance the current owners may be in a position where they would do some sort of subordinate carryback that could really sweeten the deal potentially. But and then if this type of home would qualify for FHA, or what the end buyer financing might look like, and I think it's like you said, the conventional financing is the lenders are excited for it because it's probably a product that will go quickly, but that could be something that may be it certainly sounds like a sort of a starter type of a.
Their marketing plan states that they feel they have some room to offer some incentives where buyers can get in with minimal money down.
Mm-hmm.
Probably anywhere from 0 to 3% down, I would think. There's plenty of programs out there.
Yeah.
And now that they've lowered some of the requirements on credit scores down into the 560, I think now on. I don't know if these would qualify for HUD.
Hey, Bo, is there a like a plan of phasing the renovations? In other words, you'll do one block and move those tenants out so that the remaining is still cash flowing in order to pay the first loan. Do you know if there's any kind of a plan to how to go about doing this successfully? Because I noticed that the whole plan, or one of the plans, might be to have the rental income pay the first loan.
So right now they've got about 10 grand a month in cash flow off the property without paying any debt service. So that should more than cover the debt service on the basically a $2 million first at 5.5%. So the first is covered off the cash flow, and they're planning on phasing it through, just following the absorption of 2 a month, and they would step it up if they had a higher absorption than 2 a month. Mm-hmm. They figured they're going to only need about $60,000 in construction funds out at any given time, and then they can pay down the first position. Their current performance shows paying off the first in the, I think I put it in here.
I think I started to
17 or so pay off the first position lender.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
17th sale, and then on the second position on the 22nd sale.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so I'll pull it up here. So it's 31 units, 150,000 total, sale price of 4.65 million, estimated 18-month project, 2 sales per month, but they believe they might end up being able to get 3 to 4. Mm-hmm. First position lenders paid off on the 17th sale, second position lender paid off on the 22nd sale. Mm-hmm. Assuming that we couldn't negotiate a small payout off the first 17, but I don't know what do you think, Tom, here, as far as what a first position lender might be willing or not willing to do?
As far as a pay down?
Right.
You know, a lot of times, well, depends on whether it's new construction, rehab, something like this. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd want to get 12 and 15% pay down of principal over and above the amount that they are getting. So with the partial release, they may want 12 to 15 or 15, somewhere in that range additional from the principal amount on each pay down. But that would seem like about right if it's by the 17th property. That could seem about right. That would be about that percentage. What you had the analyzer on this, right, Bo?
Yeah, I do. So I actually got one more slide that kind of goes over the numbers.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Oh, yeah, there it is. That construction.
All right. So this shows, again, the 31 units at 150,000 each, which needs to be confirmed. I think there's some room in there. It's still a good deal even below that at 4.65 million. They're stating an equity requirement of 580,000, even though there's a total renovation cost of 929,480, which 653,480 is going to be used on the interiors. And since they're going to phase through, they believe they only need 60,000 of that at any given time. So that would have to be coordinated with the first position lender. Will probably control the rehab. Our funds will likely go towards the purchase price, and they'd be paying a lower interest rate on those construction funds, and only what they use. They've got some acquisition costs of $29,250, $93,000 to market the property, and then $279,000 in real estate commissions on the sale. And I believe there's probably more. There are obviously more costs like interest and in this, but this is off their pro forma. So we're going to use the deal analyzer and see what we come up with.
Before you go there, I just wanted to invite anybody. You know, you've heard enough about the deal right now, and so if anyone has any comments or questions, we always love it when you can just go to the apps on the side, usually on the side of your screen, and just run your cursor over there, and you'll see one that says Q&A, unless it shows up a different way on your computer. And we would love to have your comments or questions of anyone, most especially Bo. And here is one. Hey, Tom, nice to see you. Maybe we'll take one question first, Bo. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Tom is asking, Tom Dinda is asking, is the borrower planning to renovate each building one at a time or pick individual units?
I believe in the performance says they're going to do one building at a time. I would think if there's 6 units in a building, you do all 6, but it appears in their market study and their performer, they're anticipating like doing 2 at a time, maybe 3, where they only have 60,000 at a time out, and they've got to manage the month-to-month renters to the people who have a year-long lease, and I'm sure there's all different stages of when those terminate. So they've obviously got some pre-planning to do.
Great, thanks. Thanks for the question, Tom.
And Bo, before you go to the analyzer, what's your gut reaction on the numbers that you see so far as it relates to renovation, marketing, that type of thing?
They've got $20 a square foot on 1,000 square feet. They've got $20,000 to spend on the interiors. There's really not a lot in 1,000 square foot townhouse. It's basically flooring, kitchen, and bathroom cabinets. So I think easily 20 grand will more than be enough to do a really nice job on the interiors.
So if it's not in an area like San Francisco or New York or wherever it might be, if it's in more of the standard pricing areas, is there a price per, like a rule of thumb that you use on a bathroom, a gut of a bathroom? It's just like sort of a range that you use?
Well, I mean, that's a pretty broad question, probably. I mean, units like this, you'd be hard-pressed to spend $2,000 in a bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
That's putting in new tubs, shower valves, tile, or some kind of a wall surface in the shower, a vanity, sink, and a toilet.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit of flooring and hardware. And this is really, no more than what you're going to go to Home Depot and buy on these units. The price range and location where they're at. So, and then, a bathroom, typically you're going to figure 2,500 to 3 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And the sky's the limit from there.
Yeah, I think on starter homes that's 25 to 35, somewhere in that range once you get labor and everything else included.
Yeah.
And it depends a little bit on whether there's other parts of the home that are being renovated too. If it's contractors coming in specifically just for a bathroom, and an owner-occupied home, let's say that it's just as a contractor, it's probably going to be more than that. But going in like multiple units like this, to me that sounds reasonable.
Hey, Bo, Tom also has a really good question and a comment. He asks also any issues with existing renters or tenants, or maybe you could convert them into owners. It's a good idea.
One of their strategies, one of their buyers, they listed 2 or 3 potential buyers for this product, and one of them was the tenants. So they can actually buy, I think they figured the loan would be around $900 a month. I think the average rent was around 7 something. So they're going to go in and increase rents as they go, more than likely. And the people who are going to leave, and the ones who are going to stay, they'll figure all that out. But with a write-off, they're not going to be paying any more to own it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good deal.
Yeah, and Jay asks also, so if they're improving units to sell, how do they continue to pay off the first if several tenants move out?
Well, obviously that has to be part of the plan. I assume he'll either need reserve cash as a buffer, or we'll have to build that in. I've built 18 months into the project for interest reserve, and I have to find out what is the first loan terms. I don't really know what that is. I just know what they're saying.
Mhm.
They're not talking about interest in their performance. So that's a good question.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
So let's see what else. They had 93,000 for marketing, and I think 93,000 is probably a reasonable budget to get the word out on this project, and maintain marketing for 18 months. But I'd like to see how they have it broken down.
Okay.
So I don't know. Should I pull up this?
Yeah, if you're able to do the analysis, that would be.
Yeah. So I enlarged this screen so we can only see a portion of it at a time. This shows the purchase price of 1.95 million, rehab cost, a construction 580, and that's assuming we can manage a $60,000 construction budget at any given time. That could obviously go up if the absorption rate went up. They could, end up borrowing more money, but if they're selling them faster, there's probably less interest in the back end, so it just has to be accounted for to make sure those monies are available. I just plugged in $100,000 just to see, where this took us, and where the numbers lie. After repair value is 4.65 million, and I plugged in 18 months, even though it looks like we could be out of this thing in less than 12 months. But at least they'll be covered with it. Don't have to pay interest for 18 months. And then the first position loan is 1.950, which is the purchase price of the property. They're quoting 5.5% interest. I plugged in 2 points. I'm not sure. Could be less. And then the second would be 12%, 5 points, 3% to cover construction control and closing costs, 6% in sales commissions, and I'm showing a profit share of 50%, which they're offering their LLC partners in the EPM. So if we go down, you have a question, Tom?
Well, just one thing that in a case like this, sometimes what I'll do is I'll work on a blended rate on the second position, especially because it's a higher rate of 12%. If we truly expect it to go to be completely sold out in 18 months, I think we could probably drop the effective rate there to maybe, what do you think, 7%, and still be pretty safe, or 8%.
So if you want to look at your potentially your maximum return, right? The other thing that isn't really factored in here is that we do have $110,000 a year in rents that are going to go towards paying the interest, and this actually is calculating in the interest. So there should be an extra $100,000 to $150,000 in revenue on the bottom line once we take a look at that.
Hey, Bo, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
If they're going to be selling units as they finish renovating them, are they going to be paying off the first as they go along, and then the interest will actually go down, and they would owe less per month, and their rents would actually cover it, maybe?
Their performance shows they're paying off the first position lender $138,000 per sale. $12,000 is going to real estate commissions and closing costs. So the developer's not pulling any cash out until the bank and the investors are paid off.
So I guess what I was saying is that the interest owed every time they sold one, it would go down every month. So it wouldn't matter if they're not getting rent for the one they sold, because they're actually paying down the principal, so the interest is less, and they wouldn't need as much per month for the total loan.
That's true, yes. That's a great observation because that does put more money to the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really showing, should show worst case scenario, the scenario I have here. But we could go back and adjust some of those numbers and see where they're at, right? You want to go ahead and
even by just, sorry.
You want to put a blended rate in here?
Yeah, I just put 7 in
Okay.
as the blended rate. That'll take into account the pay down and the so that helps the bottom line quite a bit.
So here, the deal analyzer produces the numbers here that are showing on the screen. Shows the interest, the points on the first and the second, and it gets down to a total loan amount with interest reserves. And again, this is factoring in interest on the first, which probably isn't going to happen, so it's going to be less than this. We can almost put 0 interest in on the first, couldn't we, Tom? Because the rents are going to be.
I would agree that you practically could,
Yeah.
and that again, that's sort of. I like what you did the first round because you did absolute worst case scenario.
Right.
At full interest, 18 months, with no rental income at all, it still worked out just fine. So.
Right. So let's leave it. We know we got a buffer in the village, right?
Yeah.
So second position loan is 890,858, which it'll end up being less than that. We just don't know exactly how much less at the moment. It's going to depend on the appraisal and the first position lender.
What is your ROI to the borrower and to the lender? I can't quite see that.
ROI to the second?
Yeah.
No, wait, okay. Ratio of purchase price to rehab. Actually,
Should be the second
over here.
bottom two.
So second position ROI is 60%, and the borrower is obviously doing quite well at 479%.
Yeah, that's what I show here. And that right there is one of the discussions I have with borrowers a lot, is that if they're not only getting, if they put cash in, at least the way we structure them, they're not only getting interest, the same interest rate that we as lenders get at 12%, they get that on the cash that they put in, but they also get, by the time they're done, even after they get paid for everything they do on the project, they're getting really a 479% annualized return in this case. So it's super leverage on their part to make this happen. Now the other thing that would be really interesting would be if they were able to do a $300, $200, whatever $1,000 subordinate carryback, that would make the second position ROI skyrocket.
All right.
Hey guys, Jay has a really not good suggestion too. He said he would suggest that any sales revenue over 150, I guess 150,000 from Unit 1 goes to pay off the second, just in case these do start to sell for over 150,000.
You broke up there. I'm sorry, Barry.
Oh, Jay suggests that that any sales revenue over 150,000 for Unit 1 goes to pay off the second, just in case the units start to sell for over 150,000.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, if you can negotiate that in, absolutely, I think that's great. And as a lender, you usually have negotiating in that, and I don't know what you guys think for the ratio, but I like to see a minimum of 80-20 as to the lender payoff, lender pay down on principal 80%, and 20% to the borrower. So if this is out of the equity portion, an 80-20 rule is what I like. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we just have to see what that first position lender is willing to do.
Mm-hmm.
As we know, conventional lenders can be rather finicky.
Yeah, exactly.
And they may not consider our money being his money, or if he's got an LLC that's pulled the money in, they may consider that. I know a lot of these lenders want to see the borrower's cash in the deal.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to see him leveraged quite that much. So,
All right. Any other observations, anyone?
I think it would be interesting to see if you ran that deal analyzer with the first lender as a hard money lender versus a conventional lender, you know, kind of worst case scenario, to see how that impacts the bottom line on there.
That's a good idea.
okay, so if we plug in, what do you think we can we get a 10% first?
Let's try 12 because that's what we usually plug in.
All right. And just 12 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to leave. See, there would be a pay down on that too. So, I mean, really, it wouldn't end up really being a full 12, would it? If those are being paid down along the way, so you can almost plug in 7 on that also, couldn't you?
Right. Yeah.
So it's really not going to be a whole lot different, because really this deal should have been plugged in at 0 since we have the revenue off the rentals.
Just for a stress test on it, just what would it come to if it was 12 and 12 for 18 months?
I'm going to put 12 and 12 for both, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's still a 22% net profit.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and it really shows what the potential is if you can find the properties where you can do repositioning. If this was a rehab to keep it as an apartment complex, it probably would have a hard time making the numbers look even close to what this is. But because it's a project that can be condominiumized or split up, it certainly can add some value. Do you know if the building itself has been surveyed as it's ready to sell separately?
They state in there that Texas actually has a written ruling on what you have to get. There's 3 different certifications, documentation that you have to go through, and evidently it's a very quick process in Texas to actually get the conversion. So they're not expecting it to take very long to be able to get underway, but that certainly needs to be confirmed.
I see. A while back I did a new construction, 30-some unit new construction, Class A apartment complex. We actually had all of the surveying within the building, all of the specs drawn up and the approvals in place, so that if at any point in time someone wanted to turn it into a condo complex, it could be done. We chose not to because we didn't think the market was there for it at the time, but that's something that could add some reasonable value to it if in stage of a project.
Yeah, so I see one of the biggest challenges is just to really hone in on the $150,000 value and figure out what is the bottom line and what is the range that this product will sell for in that area, and be very realistic about it. Often these kind of deals, they kind of peg top of the market to make the performance look good. So, you just never know where the person presenting it, what numbers they're using.
Well, Jay asks, do they have money in the deal for setting up the condo association, ongoing management costs, things like that? I'd imagine, excuse me, I'd imagine that isn't expensive. Thanks, Jay. Any ideas?
They've got $30,000 plugged in for upfront costs to do probably all the filings. And I'll have to investigate and figure out whether that's enough money or not.
Yeah, and I wonder if what Jay might be asking is whether there's, for a condominium, what's the word I'm trying to think of, an association.
Homeowners Association, HOA.
Yeah, HOA, but I'm thinking that this one, if I remember right, Bo, I think you said that it was possible to do it in a way where it was actually fee ownership on the entire lot for each parcel. I think that could increase the desirability of the project fairly substantially if that is that way where it doesn't have a homeowners association.
Yeah, I believe it will have. There is some mention about homeowner association in here, but the documents that they're going to need are the Declaration of Condominium Regime, Condominium Owners Association organizational documents, and a warranty deed.
Okay.
None of these documents require a lengthy application or approval process by the state or city.
Okay.
Well, Kim wanted to know, what is the permit time period for a project of this size? Do you have any idea?
They didn't state exactly in here. That's pretty much the only thing that relates to it. Is they've got to go through this process to get these 3 documents done according to the Uniform Condominium Act, Chapter 82 of the Texas Property Code.
Just to tag on to what Jay said, if it does require a condo association structure, then that would probably be that would be something that I would think one would want to look at fairly closely, because it's going to end up being a fee that gets pushed down to the owners of the property, and it could affect the valuation or the desirability or the sale price of the property.
Yeah,
But
they don't have.
World, if the utilities were separated, if everything was on its own physically, sure would be a nice property to not have the requirement of a homeowners association.
Also, Kim adds, are there? Whoops, where'd it go? Also, are there any road or street light improvements like pool or ADA compliance requirements?
There are minimal amenities currently on site, so there's not going to be a huge expense to the homeowner association of just basically maintaining the parking lot, and I assume roofs and painting and stuff like that. So they don't talk about whether they are going to run up in anything where they're going to have to put in street lights or anything, to get it approved. But it's certainly worth investigating and making sure there's not going to be any major outside requirements.
Good question.
I mean, one of the it doesn't have a lot of amenities, which is also possibly a concern. We got to look at competitive pricing in the market and make sure you can't go down the street and get swimming pools and playgrounds, for $140,000 a unit. Mm-hmm. So that's something we have to look into.
All right. Well, it's an interesting project. You'll have to keep us posted. And
Tom, we had one more question here from Tom Dindigan. At the beginning of the call, Bo mentioned 31 units. and that the 31st unit is actually an office. Any plans for that space, for example, converting the office into a home?
Actually, I was reading. I got distracted. Any plans to?
Yeah, I'll read it again. It's okay. At the beginning of the call, you were talking about that you mentioned 31 units, and that the 31st unit was an office. Any plans for that space, for example, converting the office into a home?
Yeah, I'm not sure what they're planning on to do. That's a good question. I didn't make note of it going through, but I'll add that to the list. What are they doing?
I think the calculation in the sales price included 31 units.
Yeah, I'm thinking they are converting it, but I'll need to confirm it.
Thanks, Tom.
All right. Any other comments, questions?
Catch up with the comments.
Okay. I'm good. Don't worry about it, Bo. You've got enough to worry about. I'm good.
Are there common ground parking lots? So each space has its own parking space, and I haven't counted. I didn't talk about. I assume there's only one per unit, but I'm not sure. I need to check.
So what's going to be your next? What would be your next steps in this case, Bo, from to take it to the next level?
Make an appointment to talk to the borrower, hopefully tomorrow, and walk through the project with him and just see how confident he is in raising his $580,000. See if he has any resistance, and bringing in a second position lender versus doing his PPM, and try to talk him through why he would want to deal with us versus having several small partners in a limited or an LLC, limited liability company.
Mm-hmm.
He's got to report to. He could just report to one person.
Mm-hmm.
And it may cost him a little bit more money this way, but it'll cost him less time. He does have 60 days to pull his money together before he's got to go. Actually, 60 days. Well, he's got 15 more days before he's got to put up another 100 grand.
I see.
So he's 15 days away from having that pressure of worrying about whether he's in the next 30 days going to get his $580,000. So
Sure.
I'm going to have to make him pretty confident that we can put this thing together and perform.
Right. Yeah, and when you think about it, if he takes the time and does what he's really good at, and maybe it's going to cost the project a little bit more for him to do it this way, possibly. But I would also argue that the cost to him is not. A lot of times, the borrower may say it's 12%, 5 points, and half the profits, when in fact it really would only be an effective rate to the borrower of only 6%. 2.5 points and half of the profits. So that could be a point, and then to share with him, and then also the fact that that he would be, if he does put cash in himself, he's also getting interest on the cash he puts in. So to do that comparison back and forth to see what his level of acceptance is.
Plus, I think he's pretty good at finding these deals. From what I've read in his resume, he's been involved in some pretty large projects, and he's obviously found himself a good deal here. He can turn around, and if he doesn't have to worry about raising capital every time he turns around, this could be a good relationship going forward.
Absolutely. Can you imagine if he could take the month capital? If he could go out and find 2 or 3 deals during that time and have a money partner that's there to take up the slack, to get the financing, all the money in place right away, look at the leverage that both sides are able to accomplish with that.
No, Kim has a really good question and comment here. She said, "Is there a provision for an increase in parking spaces? Because usually an apartment to condo requires an additional space." Didn't realize that.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look into parking. So he doesn't really address it in his executive summary. So it's a great question that needs to be sorted out.
Yeah. Thanks, Kim.
Even if it can be approved, it can, if you only got one parking space, you need two, it could be a problem for sales.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And to identify, sorry, go ahead, Jennifer.
I was going to say, Bo, and you definitely need to sell yourself as part of the partnership of not just bringing money, but an extra set of eyes on the project that can save a lot of time and money. Just having someone that he can work with that has your experience and the whole team's experience, and that's a big part of what you bring to the table.
Right. Yeah, good point. Because the conventional lenders aren't always that helpful.
No.
Right.
All right. Any other last thoughts, comments? I know we're getting close to the top of the hour here, so you're going to do a little bit more research and have a discussion with the borrower.
Yeah, I guess, if he, then there could be a question if he still wants to run down the route of doing his LLC, PPM, it could end up being what he thinks it's costing him. I don't know.
Sure.
You give in a little bit on your equity share. I'm not. I think that we lend enough extra value that we shouldn't have to.
Right. Great. Well, we'll definitely keep an ear out. Interested to hear how your meeting goes, and should be good. Good project from what one can see so far. Cool. Anybody else have anything else they want to share before we wrap up this call?
Well, I can talk about my call that's coming on in about 30 minutes.
All right.
We're gonna have a two-part call. We're gonna talk partly about investor presentations and how to look at the project that you have and pull out the best information for your investor presentation, and making sure that you're able to sell your project to your investors and having all your objections taken care of and all kinds of things like that. And the other thing that we're going to talk about is the Wealth Foundation class. We try to touch on this every quarter because it's something that everyone needs to know, and it's not really advertised much, but I always try to let people know about it. So we'll talk about that for a little bit too.
All right. Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Mandy, any last comments, thoughts?
No, I think I didn't really get a chance to look at the project. Bro brought it home last night, but one question I would have is there any space there, Bo, additional open space to add more amenities if you could bring more value to the project?
I looked at the aerials, or the overheads, and I haven't really looked into it that closely, but that's a good point to ask for sure.
Yeah, I'm looking at the overhead photo, Bo. It looks like it's just basically parking spaces.
I think it's full, but
what's that?
I think it's full of buildings.
Yeah, and the surrounding areas. Yeah, it looks that way. Although there is some, it looks like some sidewalk in the front. Maybe there might be. You never know. Judging by as you pull into the space, it looks like there's some open space there in the front. Maybe.
All right. Any other questions, Barry, on the board?
No,
From anybody?
I think that's it. Okay, you're welcome, and thank you guys that participated. It really makes a big difference for.
Thank you. Appreciate that a lot.
Yep.
Great. All right. Well, thanks everyone. We'll until next week. We'll catch you then. And thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.